All right, fellas. Well, to kick off, if you can just give some quick introductions to the crowd, let the people know who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Jon Kagan, Director of Search and Media Strategy for Amsive.
I'm Scott McCrary, Director of Marketing for MGM Resorts.
Awesome. Okay, so actually, John, I have a quick question for you before we get started. So yesterday you were a moderator and you were only allowed to ask questions. Today we're letting you answer those questions. What does this promotion mean for your career?
It ensures I get a paycheck this week.
Perfect. We love to hear it. Okay, so before we get into the upcoming year and what you see ahead for us in this world of search, I think it's really helpful if we set the stage and just talk about the state of search. So in both of your own words, like, how do you see today's programs? What's working really well for you, and where are you finding challenges with the current search program? Scott, if you want to take that.
Yeah, business as usual. I know that's not like a really exciting or sexy thing to answer, especially after we just talked about AI for the past 2 days, right? But until I start seeing CPCs continue, well, I guess keep rising or get to a level that I can't, afford, or if Gemini continues to maybe push out some of our ads and maybe make those first positions and all the bidding for first positions start to make it not worth it, I don't see any reason for us to change like overarching strategy.
Have you ever seen that meme of that crab sitting at the bottom of the Mariana Trench where it lives in complete darkness under crushing pressure and it learned to adapt to that?
We're targeted with very different content.
That is how I view search. To put it nicely, it is become a little bit of a dumpster fire that we've had to learn to adjust to. From the lack of transparency from Performance Max to who cares what a match type is anymore. It's an ever-evolving strategy. To Scott's point, is business as usual, but it's nothing what it was 3 or 4 years ago.
So can you talk a little bit more about that, and through the lens maybe of, are you still finding your search campaigns to be as effective and worthy of the big budgets that they used to command, or is that ROAS starting to creep down to where you're having to rethink your channel mix?
ROAS is creeping down for sure, but honestly, if I'm speaking on behalf of MGM and what it's like to be in the Vegas market, it's so noisy right now because of OTAs and how aggressive other competitors are getting that it's difficult to pin just the performance overall of Google versus just the change in the overall landscape. So it is changing, but it's going to be really difficult for me to start, or at least tell my team and in leadership that we need to start pulling budget away from search because it's so trackable for us, right? Like, the lead time that someone needs to decide in order to come to Las Vegas can be 7 days or all the way out to 30 days. So if there's any way with any sort of media that we can track somebody clicking on a link and then fully attributing it through the actual booking engine to our site, like that is so valuable to us that things would have to go drastically wrong for us to change anything. But
So we haven't actually seen ROAS go down. For the most part, it's stayed flat for us. In a couple instances, it has risen. But what simultaneously we've seen is our costs have gone astronomically high, especially with regulated industries, but also what we classify as search. Back in the day, it was just you bid on a keyword, that was search. Then it moved on to the shopping. Now it's incorporating the Performance Max. And now we're looking at the search partner networks as well in there. So the evolution of search as a whole for us is what's drastically changed. And because of that evolution, we've been able to maintain our ROAS, but it's still not what we always have viewed as search.
Got it. I love that. So the expanding definition of search, do you view some of these, and we heard a little bit about this in some of our previous presentations, like social is starting to be treated as a search engine in a way. Do you see a lot of similarities there where your tactics are extensible to those channels, and is that becoming a core part of your search strategy?
So, like on TikTok and on Pinterest, we've tested and are currently testing their search product. The performance differences between just a normal search campaign and what we're seeing in TikTok are so different that it's impossible to compare them. To be honest, too, like what you said, when it comes to maybe mirroring strategies, we started with non-brand and brand terms, taking them from Google and from Bing, putting them into TikTok, and it's just a different breed of searchers on TikTok and a different breed of searchers on Pinterest. So it almost feels like we're going to need to fully reevaluate search dependent on what platform you're actually searching on and running media on.
And just to confirm, you said there's a big difference in performance. Which one is
Oh,
performing
yeah.
better?
Oh, search, like normal search.
Traditional
Google.
paid
Oh,
search,
yeah.
got it.
Oh,
Okay.
by a mile.
Do you think at all, though, those social channels could be incremental? Like that customer that you're reaching in those spaces goes above and beyond what you're getting in Google?
I think it could be incremental. I know for certain, just based on anecdotal evidence of my friends and younger family about who uses it, I know we're reaching a different audience than you say, like with Google or Bing. But I also think too, you're able to advertise something different on TikTok rather than just on Google search or on Bing. You have headlines, you have descriptions, and that can be fun. We can make that exciting. But on TikTok, at least there's some way to easily kind of pivot over to an influencer creative or some kind of video to really show the experience of MGM, because that's what it's so much about for us, is making sure that, creating FOMO, getting people to try and want to come to not only Vegas, but to, Bellagio. So it's while it performs, a lot, I don't want to say worse I'm sure TikTok might end up seeing, but it performs a lot worse. It just is what it is. But I think there will be a value there. We just got to find it, because we can be just so much more in depth with the creative.
When we look at it from the expansion on from your traditional Google and Bing, we utilize it, the keyword-based scenario, not so much. But what we do is we test out the creative, but more so the thing that we carry over from Google, Bing over to all these other platforms is the audience segmentation targeting. We are able to garner so much info from Google, Bing, forces itself into Google Analytics for us to be able to build out that data, and then we can refine that and put it into our audience targeting. We'll carry over the same creative, but to Scott's point, it's a different beast. It's a different audience outright, but at least we can use that insight from regular search campaigns to influence who actually is going to see our ads, because I don't want to serve my ad to everyone. I hate to say it, and it sounds terrible, I don't want to be inclusive of everyone, because not everyone is worth me spending money on.
You raised your mic a little bit. Hot take.
This is a very direct question. I don't know if it's going to be helpful to you all, but so we're in a restricted, or I guess you call it like a restricted industry, right, with casino. So we can't move, we can't share audiences between platforms, especially from Google. I know that you said that you work in a lot of regulated industries as well. Is it the same across the board, like the way casino is, or do they have different standards on Google?
A variety of standards between COPA, HIPAA, PII, HEC violations. There's just so many different ways to get fined.
That sounds fun.
So Scott, I actually want to come back to something you said earlier, because you mentioned briefly the Gemini disruption on the SERP and impact to your ads. Can you expand on that a bit? Because I think over the past few days, we've talked a lot about AI. It's the elephant in the room. It's poised to be the big disruptor in the market, but it sounds like you're already feeling the impact of that, even beyond just how AI is integrated into your campaigns.
I don't want to keep being a negative Nancy up here, but the biggest impact I'm seeing right now is that it's just annoying. It's annoying because they're not changing the price of what it means to be in first position, even if you're now, 5 inches, 8 inches down further down the page. It's just it's going to be the same. So now, instead of us just focusing on what the overall group of keywords, or just letting maybe broad match kind of run its course, now we have a bunch of folks on my team who are trying to cut down on the number of bids that we put on for search terms that go over 5 words, because 5 words is normally, or on, is how Gemini normally ends up jumping in. Right, with like Bellagio Hotel, they don't, Gemini has nothing to really say about just the words Bellagio Hotel, but are like best things to do in Las Vegas, right? Something we'd end up bidding on, and then Gemini jumps in. Oh, let me tell you all the things that I just, pulled from my LLM, right? So, or LMM, yeah, no, LLM, nailed it.
And are you seeing similar in your spaces as well, where you're having to make that shift out of broader terms into just a couple of keywords?
No. What I'm seeing is once a week, my CEO, my CMO ask me, what are we doing with AI, since it's a new fun word, and I tell him that AI's been around for probably about 15 to 17 years. We just never called it that. It just became a fancy buzzword. Bid strategies, the original concept of bid strategy was nothing more than algorithmic learning, which is artificial intelligence kicking in. Where we're viewing it now is going in and doing creative audience segmentation and budget targeting. And when you look at it and what they offer us, they're either written terribly or they're going to get us sued.
Yeah.
So we've found scenarios where it helps us do forecasting, helps us build out keyword lists, but we cannot let it take the wheel, if you will. and there's always been this fear of it's going to come over and take over entities. It works okay for SMBs with limited resources, small teams that need the support, that have no regulations. But when you go to the major holding companies, you go to any of the publicly traded entities where you have to go, every audience you look at, every ad you have has to go through 5 levels of compliance. There's very little to it. And then when we look at the SGE and the Gemini side, all right, might see a declining click-through rate, but that just means Google is going to change their monetization model on this one because they would also lose out simultaneously.
Got it. I want to click into this a little bit more, actually. So Google's invested tremendously in different automations, different AI integrations into how you structure your campaigns. How do you find that right balance then between the hands-on control and then leaning into some of these resources that hopefully have some time cost savings?
So this is me speaking just as a general search user and search marketer. I think it would come down to the importance and the fragility of that campaign, about how hands-on or hands-off you want to be. But speaking as MGM, every campaign is important, and every campaign is fragile, and we're always hands-on all the time.
Without doing the adorable little smirk, we have to be hands-on where we can be. So Performance Max or shopping, we can feed the back and we can control the creative, but there's only so much we can do from an actual hands-on standpoint. But when we look at it, we let the bid strategies start to over, and then we have to have, I guess, a hands-on approach where it means we have a human oversight there every single moment of the day to give it that control and then course correct throughout the process. We aren't really, what's the opposite of time saving?
Labor intensive?
There we go.
Okay.
AI has become more labor intensive for us to have to go in and course correct and do human overrides, which is one of the reasons we won't allow it to make creative, we won't allow it to make audiences, to help. Our time saving then is preventing it from doing that, because ultimately AI will take over our capabilities, so the human intervention part comes into making sure it stays on the right path.
This is really interesting. So I've got 2 pros on the stage who've been in this industry for a long time saying, like, as much as these automation processes might be being introduced, might be relevant in the future, you always have to have some of that hands-on control. I guess I'm curious, though, like, we're in this interesting time where there's a lot of change and disruption in search, but we're also introducing more and more of some of these automations. Do you think for your entry-level marketers or for your average marketers starting to dabble in paid search, is it easier than ever to be an effective search marketer, or is that gap actually widened with the introduction of these AI tools? Go ahead.
I would say it's a lot easier to be a competent search engine marketer. I think it's now easier than ever for, let's say, like a local dentist office to then start running a search campaign not knowing what the hell to do, right? But I think then the gap starts to widen once you get into just somebody who's being competent and who's picked up search to somebody who is going to be an expert and be able to, I guess, really conduct battle in the search engine auctions. So, yeah.
I find it's easier for a small brand doing it in-house to enter the marketplace. There's a lot of time saved for them. For someone that wants to be agency side, a practitioner, or industry educator, or, dear God, I hate the term, an industry guru trying to sell their courses, the gap between entering the space and actually knowing what it is you're doing and staying on top of it has gotten so much wider, because there's such lack of insight and transparency about what has evolved over time, and that knowledge gap is getting wider and wider.
There's at least 3 people in the audience deleting Guru from their LinkedIn right now, and you caused that. Yep. All right, so I want to start now looking forward-facing, and in a sense then talking about what we take out from the past. Is there any tactics from this past year or from the past couple of years that you're starting to see as obsolete, that with some of these changes or with your evolving search strategy, we should just stop doing these things or do them in a lower quantity as we head into 25?
This is something I want your perspective on. And I might get a lot of groans from the audience too, but we are going to start getting away from more exact match terms. So, I mean, for the longest time, especially, I've been doing search for maybe 10 years now, and exact feels like the only way to do it because you just could never trust Google, and it would run rampant, it'd go crazy, right? And and sometimes too, like you end up coming on a Wednesday, like how do I end up fixing this campaign? I got to do something, right? I got busy fingers, right? That'd be like the only way is to go and find, okay, what some exact match terms can I bring in? Thankfully, our Google reps ended up really convincing us, like, hey, let's just start trying out running full broad match on one of your properties. And CPCs went down. ROAS ROAS went up because CPCs went down, but then costs kind of relatively stayed the same. We ended up finding some new keywords, maybe even some new new types of amenities to actually start bidding on across the portfolio. We've since expanded that from one property to now 5 of the 13 that we have in Vegas. So I think we're going to start leaving exact match behind.
So match type has just gone to hell in a handbasket at this point. I will not give up on exact because there's still some iota of it left. We have started exiting phrase match because phrase is nothing more than broad match modifier, may it rest in peace, at this point. And we are starting to introduce broad. So phrase match is what I'm leaving behind, but ultimately, I believe within 2 to 3 years, the concept of a match type just doesn't exist anymore. It was funny, it popped up in my Facebook memories when I spoke at this in 2013 when I said the keyword was going to die within the next 5 to 10 years. And that was actual words from our Google rep last year saying we are moving to a keywordless society when it comes to search marketing. So maybe not leaving it in 2024, but leaving it by 2027, the concept of a keyword bid just probably won't be there anymore. It's going to be broken down to audience and signals.
Interesting. How do you think that will change your strategy? Or I guess maybe a better way of asking, are you starting to prepare for that transition now? And if so, how are you thinking about it?
So we started preparing for this about 3-4 years ago, where we started putting higher emphasis on audience segmentation, building, targeting, first-party, third-party data, recognizing that we could bid on any keyword we wanted. Google's going to be like, yeah, no, we think you're going to bid on personal computer. We're going to map you out to flip cell phones. And so I'm like, all right, I'll just roll with that. We'll at least make sure the audience is qualified to that. So we find that moving into that direction is probably going to be the most effective next step for us.
Got it. Interesting. And are you thinking about those things on the MGM side just yet, or a little too soon?
I think moving to broad match and more, moving to maybe more general bidding strategies is probably a step in the right direction. I think one thing though we're going to continue to look at, especially as we continue to expand our broad match, is making sure our negative keywords are as robust and clean as possible. We've tested some other types of bidding strategies, right, or just even different types of non-brand broad match campaigns. And once you start bidding on competitor keywords in Las Vegas, there can be quite a ruckus. So making sure that we stay buttoned up across the board there will stop a turf war. So I think we're taking the right steps, but it's good to hear from you guys.
So it's like actual physical confrontations happening in Vegas over search terms.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Okay, so we're going to start leaving keywords behind. As we enter the next year, what do you not know enough about that you need to start going out and test? Like, what are the areas, the strategies that you're going to lean into in the year ahead that you need to start preparing for?
Performance Max, we're almost 4 years in and is still a black box, and Google keeps rolling out new enhancements to it, which are almost meeting the bare minimum standards that they should have rolled out on day one and still give us absolutely no information whatsoever. So we've been experimenting with third-party scripts to try and get translational data out of it, tell us what platforms are triggering it. The reality is that is the current wave of the future when it comes to search, followed by demand generation. So we're trying to learn as much and get as much insight of that as possible, because that is where our search industry is trending towards.
I have the exact same answer, but I just, maybe to echo some of your sentiment here, it's the way PMAX is set up right now drives me crazy and drives, I think, all my leadership crazy. Google, if you're watching this, come on, guys.
We're not on camera.
I know, but I'm going to send in the video after.
You are on camera right now.
I love Google.
Oh, all of our phones did a happy little chirp at that. I'm curious, actually, speaking of talking in voice, in the year ahead, do you see much value in pursuing voice strategies or voice search, or is that way too nascent of an area to really care about?
So we actually experimented with it in 2016 in a pilot with Google Homes, And what we were discovering was so the best example I ever had was little black dress near me. If you said that into your Google Home, it would actually pick up the first placement of a PLA ad back then. It's kind of gone by the wayside, so we're going less into it's kind of voice, but it's not. We're focusing less on the voice search and more on the audio ad, if you will, if that makes sense. So we're putting more, we go to YouTube, we're trying the streaming audio ads, trying programmatic. We're trying to make sure that anything that we have that can potentially have voice to it is incorporated. So people aren't shouting, how can I buy, or what is the cheapest shoes near me? People are looking to hear that ad back to them more so for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We haven't run any voice ads, so they look fun. I want to try them out. I think if anything, we just need to be ready to have a lot of run-on sentence searches and a lot of, maybe broad match campaigns that can end up picking stuff up like that. But yeah, we haven't run anything like that.
Got it. Okay. And then I'm curious too, as we start to move into this next era of search, does anything change with your KPIs, the measurement metrics that you value, or is it really truly just BAU?
The big thing is if Google goes deeper into SGE or Gemini and we start going into where obviously the click-through rate will decline, the concept of CTR becomes worthless to us. As with it, this concept of CPC starts to become more worthless. So we start actually, I never thought I would say this 20 years ago, when we look at search, we will start looking into cost per interaction or cost per engagement like PMAX has done, and we'll start looking at CPM quality more than anything else, and then focusing more on landing page experience if an individual can ever actually make it to the landing page.
Interesting.
Yeah, almost in the same vein as what you're saying. I think the bottom line metrics and like KPIs probably don't change overall, but I think the way that we're approaching the same kind of ad placements in 2025 are going to change. Right now, if you end up going on your phone and searching like Aria Las Vegas, and we're the first ad, hopefully, you're just going to see a lot of book now messaging, and it's like very, trying to get people to actually drive and go to the booking site, just book, right? We've been running a lot of tests that, in basically A/B testing, either we do our normal book now messaging, or we just say something that's maybe net new, like, hey, this is something cool to do at Aria. This is maybe something, a great place to eat at Aria, instead of just trying to push and shove, rates down people's throats. We ended up running those tests. They run relatively the same. So I think rather than just trying to, push CTAs down people's throats, as I said earlier, right? It's going to be about maybe using the billboard effect while then still looking at the same KPIs and ROAS and all of that. So.
Got it. Okay. Well, final question, and I feel like I'm going to regret this one, but next 3 to 5 years, give me your hot takes. What do you think is going to happen in this world of search?
I think search volume basically barely changes. I think all of this ruckus about people going over to chat, AI chat tools, that they're going to start using that only, is wrong. I think people are very stubborn when it comes to like their normal habits. I think Google sticks around and barely changes in volume for the next 5 years.
And is that just a gut feeling, or is there anything that you're seeing that indicates that search volume will stay flat? It can be gut.
Right now, yeah, we aren't seeing any change in search volume year over year. It's definitely gut. I mean, a big thing for me, and maybe this is still more gut, and definitely more anecdotal, and who knows how the hell this is going to change, but most people, when they have like an iPhone or just a phone, they tap on the bottom, they just start typing in the Google search, send it off. I can't imagine someone then going into ChatGPT doing the same thing. Like, you never know. Things might change, but I bet they don't. People are pretty stubborn.
The big thing I'm looking at is, let's pretend Google is forced to break up. Let's pretend that they aren't allowed to monopolize the contracts, which I still disagree with the DOJ stance, but whatever, I'm not a legal scholar. Don't follow me for legal advice. You will get sued, all that jazz. But what it truly happens if Google isn't allowed to control or own the mobile contracts, which is what, 70% of search volume, and it goes back open. We remember, I think we all remember 2011 when Yahoo won the iOS contract, right? Oh, okay. Okay, it was just me then. And we saw literally a 50% bump in Yahoo's mobile traffic, which only happened to go from 3% to 4.5%. But if you can control that mobile scenario, you will start gaining traction, which could open up for Bing, not really Yahoo, but Bing to actually start to grow as an opportunity from that. Or we see a secondary search engine or tertiary search engine like Apple actually produce their own engine. Odds of this truly happening are fairly low, but it's something that we could look at. But ultimately, it really comes down to whoever controls mobile will control the future of that one, even with the DOJ breakup. The big thing with the cookie deprecation, if it does happen from the breakup of Chrome, if that actually does ever come to fruition, what we will then ultimately see is everyone will, including Google's standards, will be lowered from a return and becomes more of an open field opportunity. But that's all kind of hearsay and conspiracy theories that I spread online.
Got it. So what you're saying is there's a very real world in the next few years when I buy a new phone, the default search engine could be Ask Jeeves.
Yep. So I've been doing this for 20 years this February. When I got in, my number 1 spender was Yahoo, my number 2 was AOL, my number 3 was Ask Jeeves, number 4 was Google. That was less than 20 years ago.
So it can change fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. All right, thank you both.
Doug, the search engine would be DuckDuckGo.
What? I'm launching my own. It's called DuckDuckGo. There's no privacy, though.
Any questions for our panelists? Sure. Sounds so enthused.
Jason Zillow, appreciate the insights. Question maybe more on the migration to broad match. Obviously, Google's really pushing it. For us, quality isn't quite there, so kind of wondering, are you guys seeing it more as just like a pure efficiency play, or is campaign account keyword consolidation saving the team time to then micromanage PMAX or something?
We utilize it primarily, to your point, we don't see as much of a quality scenario from it. We use it as a keyword harvesting tool, which has been around for a number of years. We've tried, we're running broad match. It's still the most expensive of all of our match types ultimately.
Yeah, we do it just to make sure we're doing the right thing for the business. I mean, really just all about efficiency and fishing for new keywords. I would say, I don't know if it even does save any time, to be honest. So might even maybe more labor intensive.
Yeah. Yep.
This better be easy.
I was just interested in what you guys were saying about the concept of keyword bidding kind of going away.
Sorry, what?
Sorry, I was interested in what you guys were saying about the concept of keyword bidding kind of going away over time. How do you imagine spend allocation on search will work as that moves away?
So it used to be keyword direct bidding was 90% of my budget. When it came to e-com, because we would also do shopping, it would be 75% of my budget and 25%. We are now down to about 50-50. And my forecast for next year is keyword direct bidding may drop down to about 30% of our budget.
I think that's your answer, Scott.
I don't know.
Heavy sigh.
It's just so competitive in our industry and in our town. But the minute you start giving away some of these keywords, they'll take everything. So, I mean, we're just gonna, I don't know. It's a whole new world.
I certainly hate ending the summit on I don't know. But Scott, John, Doug, thank you guys so much. I could not have planned a better way to end in those 3 days than with that panel. So thank you guys so much.